Ladies and gentlemen, I believe we should be going. I hope. Hello, welcome back to Riley's Reviews. I'm just going to give a bit of context here. I have already filmed this once, spent half an hour on it, and then I figured out I filmed it the wrong way. So, we're back. I realised I've slouched over as well quite a lot, so hopefully. Obviously, I've gotten some feedback about the last video. I'm aware of the issues. Hopefully, touch wood, this one should be better. But I have my iPad, my notes. If you see me looking up, it's because there's City versus Spurs on the background. City are just 1-0 up apparently. Annoying. But in this video I'm going to talk about Stranger Things, in particular Season 5 of Stranger Things, and what happened and why it's so bad, especially now that where the conformity gate has died down, people just accepting that it was rubbish. But I just want to say, when the show started in 2016, I was 10. So I think I have a right to talk about it because I've grown up with the show for a long time and it's quite a big part of me growing up and I remember watching it a lot. So the show, I believe, has always been great. Season 1, I think, is the peak of the show. I think the acting is the best and the storylines are the most easy to understand. Again, as we got into later seasons, it got more and more complicated, as we saw in Season 5, where wormholes were around quite a lot and a lot of people were very confused, including my dad. City have just scored. There's 2-0. That's quite depressing. Anyway, in this video I'm going to address the issues with the final season and what I would personally change if I was Duffer Brothers. Because again, disclaimer, I do not have any sort of film experience. I'm just a 19-year-old who thinks he's better than he is. So, the strengths of the season. The relationship between Dustin and Steve continues to be one of, if not the best part of the show. I think their fight that happened, I don't remember what episode it was off the top of my head, bear with me 2 seconds. Episode 7. Fight in episode 7, I think, was needed for both their characters. Again, the points they're making were very relevant and important. Again, Dustin was dealing with the loss of his best friend, Eddie, and Steve, obviously, is not coping with that very well and how he's been placed in Dustin's eyes. But again, a very good part of the season. The 2 new kids introduced into the cast, that being Derek and Holly. However, obviously, Holly was in the show, but her prominence has been increased, with a new actor being Neil Fisher. Neil Fisher? Can't remember how to say it. She was good, and so was Jake Connolly. Both fantastic in their roles. I think they were both possibly 2 of the best characters in the season, in my opinion. And Derek was one of the funniest. But anyway, the epilogue, I think, was good. I liked how, Steve being a baseball coach and stuff, that made sense in my head as headcanon. Obviously, the gang, that being Steve, Jonathan, Nancy, and Robin, still hanging out, is fun. Then playing D&D made me happy as a massive D&D nerd. Again, we've seen me play. If you've not checked out my Baldur's Gate 3 video, check it out because it shows you how much of a massive nerd I am. And Dustin being able to flip off the principal made me very happy. Issues, there's quite a few of them. The big issue, I think, that the show's always suffered from is the Duffer Brothers' inability to kill main characters. For example, Steve was meant to die in season 1, but he didn't do it because Joe Keery so much. And I think that's set him on a pathway. In season 5, there was 21 main characters. It's a lot of characters. So I think that led to the show feeling quite bloated at times. And that was an issue that I felt there was a lot of storylines going on and a lot of characters in scenes that were not needed. Again, you look at people like Vicky, and you got the principal, and you got Murray in the Wills coming out scene. They were just not needed, and 8 is just bulked out too much, in my opinion. There's too many people in the season. Similarly, I think the Duffer Brothers, they talked a lot before the season about how it's going to be like Dark Christmas and how they were teased like 5 main character deaths. That never happened. I think they dug their own grave in that respect. Everyone thought that there was going to be more going on than what actually happened, but then they didn't. At the end of the day, we saw in the documentary they didn't actually really know what they were doing on the last episode, which you can kind of make sense now that you watch it back. It's just a bit of a mess overall, and I think that reflects on the finished product. So, what would I do differently? Volume 1 was near perfect. The only changes that I would make is having Ted actually pass away from the Demogorgon, because logically there's no way he should be able to survive what happened to him. He got flung across the room and you literally see so much blood on his chest. He should not be able to survive that. I'm sorry. Poor Ted. Rest in peace, my man. This would provide more motivation for both Mike and Nancy. Again, you got their sister being kidnapped, their dad dying, their mum being in hospital. It just adds much more motivation than the whole "are they going to survive" stuff. Nerd alert. This is something that annoyed me, and I talked to my friends about. Mike technically would not know what a sorcerer is because a sorcerer didn't exist in D&D when they were playing. He would have been a mage. Nerd. Dr. K. She's a very confusing character. What I would do, I've gone full game through of this, is that I would have her be the ex-wife of Brenner, and when Brenner passed, she got handed all the stuff for the facility, and that made her fascinated by 11, by all the kids that happened, and that be her motivation for wanting to find her, and why she pushes her soldiers so hard to try and find her. That's personally what I would do. I think that makes more sense. And then it just, because again, her character is very boring. She hasn't really got any motivation for actually why she exists in the universe. But Jonathan and Nancy break up. I personally would move it so it happens here, and in the final episode, they have a big fight. I'd have it in episode 4. This would be due to Nancy's passing of her father, and I think that would really motivate her to be very, well, maybe reserved and in her shell. And Jonathan interprets that as he doesn't want to be with him, where it's literally because her father's passed. And I think that'd be the breaking moment and the breaking point of why they eventually snap and why they break up. But it should also be more definitive. I think the actual breakup they had left a lot of fans confused with the whole "will you not marry me" stuff. It's very confusing for some fans, and I think it should be more definitive and like they actually physically walk away from each other, having said we're done. The final shot should remain the same, with Will killing the Demogorgons, saving his friends. I think that was a very cool spot, and Will having powers was very cool, and it makes sense in terms of tapping into the hive mind. But I like that. Well done, Duffer Brothers. You did one thing right. Good job. Volume 2. In my opinion, the big issue of this volume was that it was not dramatic as they said it was. Again, I remember Boxing Day waking up at 8 a.m. being like, "Oh, I need to watch Stranger Things," because obviously the Duff Brothers, they said a lot about how it was going to be a dark Christmas. I was fully expecting someone to die, and no one did. So this is what I'm going to attempt to fix in my rewritten bit. To start off with, I would have Vicky die in the hospital. This would be in replace of the whole Karen stuff and how she threw something into the washing machine to blow it up. I personally would not have that there. Now, here you're wondering why. Logically, Karen Wheeler should not be able to move after what happened to her. It makes no sense. Why was she able to do that? I would personally have it as Vicky sacrificing herself in a shot very similar to that of Bob in season 2, and how Robin is getting pulled away by Lucas. I think that would make more sense in my head, especially when you look at the epilogue and how Vicky is not there, and they break up, I think, canonically. So I don't know why she's kept alive, if that makes sense. I think it's more powerful, in my opinion, having her die and that be Robin's motivation for why she wants to kill Vecna so much. But that's just a little. To be fair, you can get away with not doing this, I think, and it not change the show massively. But personally, I think it makes more sense in a way of just being deadlier. Sure. Now, as I said, the argument between Dustin and Steve should remain the same. Have that happen. But whilst that's happening, I think you cut in shots between Jonathan and Nancy arguing, and then have when Dustin and Steve eventually break down the door, but I would have it be the roof instead. Hear me out. Then some situation like a ladder, or you do it as Jonathan gives her knee up or something to push her up, and then I'd have Jonathan sacrifice himself to keep Nancy alive, and then have him give her the cassette as the last words, or saying something along the lines of "Do with this as you will." He then dies in the melting room, I will call it. This will be heartbreaking for Nancy. However, I think it makes more sense. I don't really like Jonathan. I think last season his was quite boring, his arc, personally. And then obviously not having to propose, I think makes more sense. Because logically, that room, why did it stop? They've never explained why the goop, I will call it, actually stopped. I would have someone die in that room, that being Jonathan. And I think that would propel certain things I'll later talk about to make more sense. As I alluded to, Will's coming out soon would then personally make more sense with it being with his closest friends and family, because logically, every character in the show should not be there. I was half expecting Dr. K to walk in somehow. Logically, I don't get why it happened. Why Murray was there, why 8 was there. It's a very private moment and should not happen. It should just be as close friends and family. This would also make more sense to happen because of Jonathan dying. He never actually got to tell his brother specifically he was gay. His brother suspected it, but he never actually told him. I think that would motivate him to want to say it because obviously they're about to fight Vecna. And if he was not able to tell this secret to his close friends, like a Mike, like a Lucas, like a Dustin, that would hurt him more. So I think it makes more sense as to why he had actually come out in the way he did. Joyce originally instructs Will to stay away. She's scared of losing potentially another child. I think this links to a whole arc of being scared and letting go. Eventually, she will let go and allow Will to fight against Vecna because of all the trauma Vecna's put him through. And I think this will be her moment of being able to finally forgive herself from season one, obviously, with what happened with Will. 8 would then be captured by Dr. K and tortured. 11 would not know. I think there's a way you could work it, personally. I don't know how, maybe somehow she gets captured. Don't know. To emphasise, this would be done to emphasise the threat that the party is facing with Dr. K. And then I would actually have 8 die because of Dr. K and what she's doing. However, before her death, 8 manages to contact 11, telling her all the stuff about having to sacrifice herself to close the thing. But Upper wouldn't know. I think this would make it so much more brutal. If it does happen or not, I will not. You will find out. But yeah, I think 8 would then eventually die, and I think that puts an end to probably the most disliked character in the community. I'll be honest. Then I would have Mike and Will finally have their scene together. This would replace the one where, in my opinion, the Duff brothers just rage baited the entire Bio community in the whole "we're not friends, we're best friends." Like, no, get rid of that. Not needed. I would have it focus on Will saying how it was never actually about Mike, and it was about how he was the first boy he actually properly felt comfortable with. Again, this emphasises the point that he was actually his Tammy at the end of the day, and then give a hug to each other. And I think that gives more closure than what actually happened, in my opinion. So for a death update, Jonathan, Ted, 8, and Vicky have all died. This would leave the party feeling rather deflated and quite down. In my opinion, this is when Nancy would give a speech about how they've lost so much and how the only way they can stop losing is by killing Vecna. Again, Nancy probably has lost the most in the show, with Barb, her father, and Jonathan all dying at this point. So that would be how I end Volume 2. I think I'd end it similar way as I did, in terms of the party gang ready. No, I think actually the ending of Volume 2, from what I remember, was about how it was Vecna finally dropping the kids. I think. It was that one. You can tell I haven't actually written that down. That was fully off the top of my head, which is why I messed up. Volume 3. I would have Max not Volume 3. I would still have Max be in the wheelchair, because obviously she cannot recover that quickly, and she does not have powers like Will and Eleven, so she would not be able to actually participate in the final fight, technically. This would leave to Lucas staying with Max instead of Vicky. Obviously, that harms the main party's chances, but I don't think he would allow his girlfriend, who he's not properly seen in so long, to be alone. Obviously, Vicky is dead. So I think that makes more sense, having Lucas be in that role and being a sort of protector to Max. 11 would still be with Hopper and Murray, but obviously not have 8 with her because of her death. She would still bring Max with her in Vecna's mind. This would be as a way to try and free the kids, obviously Holly and Derek. And the Vecna would still trick Hopper into shooting the tank. However, this is a key point, I think the bullet actually should hit 11. Not killing her, but I think it should leave her not being able to use her powers for a bit. Or at least in the audience's mind. The Steve fake out wouldn't happen. There'd be more room on the platform. It makes no sense for it to happen because obviously Jonathan's not there. I think that was purely done as a way of rage baiting again the entire fandom into thinking Steve was going to die. Duff Brothers are really good at rage baiting. That's what I realised. In the Abyss, there would be demo dogs, demo bats, demogorgons, etc. Because it makes no sense for there not to be. The Duff Brothers literally raised this point. Well, they got raised this point in their documentary series, but they still didn't do anything about it. It makes no sense why Vector's not protected. Yeah, weird. During the battle, I would have many of the cast be injured and continue to fight on, again, like a D&D battle. Sorry. And how you're still going, obviously, but you're getting attacked. It's quite difficult for them, and I think you could do it in a way where this feels like genuine threat. which would happen with Nancy literally about to being killed, but then Steve saves her life in the last minute with the bat from season 1. Nice little callback to when Nancy saved Steve's life, how he is returning the favour. The gang beats up the mix of demos until they reach Vecna's lair, where all the kids are held. Will then feels something on the back of his neck. He feels the Mind Flayer approaching the gang. Steve would then nearly get Vecna'd. Again, you could have Dustin sort of be pinned against a wall, and how he sees flashbacks of Eddie all over again. A single tear rolls down his eye. Very dramatic. Steve! Screaming his name. Until you see Vecna fly backwards, freeing Steve. This would then go to a wide shot, revealing actually to be 11, who came to the abyss, similar to how she did in the actual season. 11 would kill Vecna after a long battle. This is when Joyce would behead Vecna, like she did in the actual finale, giving her the ultimate sort of revenge and finally freeing her family of the trauma that he has caused. She would then free Derek, because obviously she has lost her child, but she's still a mother, so she wants that motherly instinct. She has that motherly instinct, even saving all the kids. However, just as the party is happy, the Mind Flayer would appear. This would be a scene similar to that of Jurassic Park, meaning I would not have it be in the hostel when they do that. I would have it now, in the finale, when you hear just a thud. More dramatic than what I made it sound like. The party would then run away. However, I would have 11 this time stay actually in the abyss, or distract the Mind Flayer, saying goodbye to the party once and for all, and not having her die in this will she die, has she died stuff. I would have it be definitive, and how she distracts the Mind Flayer as everyone else runs. The party is upset as they are in the truck heading back. Will and his mum share a moment talking about all they've been through and how they're finally free. Then, similar to that of the actual show, I would have Will sacrifice himself, shutting the portal into the Upside Down forever. This makes sense in my head because obviously Will has been a part of it from the beginning, and if the Upside Down is to truly shut down, he needs to sever the link, and the only way to do that is for him dying, unfortunately. So his final words would be, "I love you, Mike," as the portal slams shut. Dr. K at this point should be looking for 11, can't see it. Or you could have it so just Hopper shoots him after losing yet another child. I think that makes more sense, to be fair. I'd have Hopper shoot Dr. K and all that in an angry rage. Because again, he wasn't. Again, I get it, it's grief, but he was very solemn when 11 died. Yeah. This would lead to a more upset and sad epilogue than what actually happened. Dustin would still give his speech, but then I think you could cut in shots of season 1 all the cast being younger, playing D&D, doing etc. That would be quite a tear-jerking moment. The epilogue would still happen, with Steve, Robin and Nancy still meeting. However, there is a feeling like something is missing, that being Jonathan, obviously. Hopper and Joyce would still get engaged. However, Hopper would say that he actually got his approval from the most important person, that being Jonathan, in a sense, because Nancy would give him the ring, saying that's what he would have wanted. But yeah, that is my Stranger Things rewritten. Hopefully you'll like it. It makes sense to me. I enjoyed writing it. It also annoyed me, really, because I'm sat there thinking, again, I think mine is decent. I'm not saying it's amazing, but I think it's better than the actual Duffer Brothers writing, personally. And they get paid for that. So that's my opinion on it. Let me know in the comments what you think, and thank you for watching. Check out my other video if you're not already. Subscribe, like, and I'll see you all in the next video. Peace.